I want to give a quick shout out to Shay Northrip, a buddy of mine who just did his movie A Box of Glass. I hope he's going to distribute it to film festivals because I believe in that film. That film was great. Saw it in this film premiere, and I hope you guys will get the chance to see this awesome movie that I saw. Hey everybody, this is Jorge Saldana, and this is a new edition to Movie Mondays. We're here in Sacramento, California. Shout out to all the cities here in California because California is my home. But I also have shout outs to New York, Chicago, and any other big city or even a small city here in the United States. And a little shout out to other countries around the world. We're here today with my buddy Shay. Movie Mondays. This podcast segment is solely on movies, animations, and stop motion films of any sort. And we just talk about it. Hey Shay, how you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Hellraiser. I remember watching this film. This is like 4 months ago. We watched.
Yeah, it was a little bit ago.
And then I swear, I never watched the Hellraiser films until throughout childhood. I knew about Pinhead was because all the Dimension films.
Yeah. They like to put them in there at the beginning, like the opening trailers of Dimension films.
Always the trailers. And eventually, you invited me to watch the movie, and it was on Netflix. And no, was it on Netflix?
Netflix.
Yeah, it was Netflix.
Actually, they're all on Netflix. All 9 of them.
Jesus.
The only 2 worth watching are the first 2.
I remember just watching it, and then the first time experienced. I swear, like, I had no expectations because I just wanted a fresh mind just watching the film.
Yeah.
And just in the beginning of the film, like, it starts out really weird, but really, like, with death and stuff.
Yeah, I know. The film starts, it opens with, like, there's, like, an old man and the main, and I guess kind of mainish character, Frank. And they're, like, sitting down at the table, and he's like, oh, I've got money. And the old guy's like, I've got this box. And so he gives him the box. And then, like, that famous scene where he's sitting there opening the puzzle box and then, it gets ripped apart with chains and hooks and all of that. Like, he's promised the land of pleasure, but it's, like, pain for pleasure.
Yeah.
Like masochism.
Yeah, that was cool. I like the practical effects and the makeup they used for that.
Yeah, I think the best part about the movie is because the plot is okay, but like the special effects and the makeup and all of that was really intense. Like the scene where he's like crawling up from the floor, reanimating himself, that was really intense. I was like, when I watched that the first time, I was like, the fuck is that? And it's like starting to form, and the head goes onto the body, and I'm just like, ew.
Those creatures were cool. When I first saw them, I was like...
the Cenobites?
Yeah, the Cenobites.
Yeah, the Cenobites are like the guardians of hell, and like they're I think like they talk about, I'm not sure if they do it in the first one or the second one, but they talk about how like the Cenobites are like people who like expanded their mind and went beyond pain and did all that shit to themselves.
Yeah. To
become like the immortal Cenobites that like run the place and get you if you open the box.
Before we go any further, I want to ask you a question. Like, how did you discover Hellraiser?
I've always been like kind of a horror movie buff, but like I remember when I was a little kid, and I used to go to Hollywood Video or like that sort of thing, and I would go down the horror section when I was a little kid just to look at the pictures because I knew like my parents wouldn't let me watch the movies that were there, most of them. And I remember seeing the Hellraiser movies and like asking my parents about them, and my mom gave me like I remember her giving me a brief synopsis about what Hellraiser was about, and I remember seeing the cover and thinking it was like, one of those silly 50s horror films where a woman falls in love with the monster and the monster is just misunderstood. And I remember thinking that when I saw the cover. But then I just found it on Netflix like a couple years ago. And I'd heard so much about it, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't really enjoy horror movies until I watch it for myself. And, like, just, like, the randomness and the gore and all of that, I really enjoyed that. It talks about, like, a lot of, like, sexual things that people didn't talk about at the time, like pseudomasochism and sadism and that sort of thing. And I really enjoyed that, like, the, like, sexual shit with the violence and all of that. And I was like, yeah.
Like, I wasn't too drawn to the horror in general when I was little, just because I was scared shitless about it. Like, I did not like Chucky or anything that looked gross, because then that would get nightmares. But eventually, when I was a bit older, I still didn't give it a chance just because I was not really a horror guy, except I actually saw another, like, Resident Evil and all those films, but those were okay. We could talk about that later, but, like, those films were not as good as I saw Hellraiser when I first saw it. So So in Hellraiser, I thought I would see Pinhead sooner than I thought, like, a lot of times, but we see more of him later on.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because, like, the movie started out to be more, like, less about Pinhead. It was more about the protagonist chick, Christy.
Yeah.
You know, the hottie.
She was hot.
And she's still kind of hot, actually. So she's, like, moving into a new place and all of that, and I guess her Uncle Frank is the guy from the beginning of the film that gets torn apart, and, like, he died up in that room, and they're moving into that room, and it's her dad and stepmom, and I guess, like, her stepmom used to fool around with Frank. But what was I gonna say? What were we talking? Oh, Pinhead. Yeah. So, like, it started out to be more about, like, the group of Cenobites rather than just Pinhead. And Pinhead was, like, the obvious leader, but he wasn't, like, the most important one. And there was the one that I really liked that has, like, the split open neck and the things hanging off of it. And that one was, like, always kind of resisting Pinhead. And I really liked that like, because Pinhead had more of a, like, orderly type way of doing things. Like, he was more like, this is what we're doing. We hold to our deals. Da 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 da. And the other one was just, like, anarchy and chaos. Like, just wanted to fucking kill people and hurt people and rip them apart. And I really like the contrast between the Cenobites. And then you have the one that kind of looks like a turtle with the glasses.
Oh, that was a cool one.
Yeah, like, the Cenobites all had, like, a lot of character, and it wasn't just about Pinhead. And then as the series progressed, it became more and more and more about Pinhead. And I think the one that really, because in the second one too, it's not really Pinhead. It's more about the Cenobites as a whole, and you see more of that, like, fight between the chaotic one and Pinhead. But then, like, once 3 hit, it was just like, oh, well, fuck it, Pinhead. That's all we care about. And for then on, it's just been like, oh, let's just throw Pinhead in a movie and call it Hellraiser.
Yeah. Talk about the hot chick, Christy.
Oh, Christy?
Yeah, like,
You want to know about her?
Like, I remember as we continued watching, then she showed up, and then I got more interested in the film. And didn't she have a boyfriend, or?
She had, like, a love interest, I believe. Like, I'm not sure if they were officially dating. I'd have to see the film again.
I think I remember, like, that. I know he had, like, a love interest in the story. Like I don't know if it was a secret, because the stepmom and the dad were, like, having the, like, they didn't talk about it, but the daughter was really distant from the family. And
yeah, well, she saw that, like, so the stepmom name is Julia, and Christy and Julia don't, like, see eye to eye. You know, like, Christy kind of sees Julia for the kind of scummy bitch that she is, which is really funny, because you kind of watch Julia's development as a character too, because she starts out a lot more innocent than, like, I mean, she's still not a good person, because, like, she cheated with Frank and all of that, but she starts out to be a little bit more innocent, and then as the film progresses, she starts to get a bloodlust and, like, hungry to kill men and to bring them to Frank. so that he can kill them and like regenerate his body.
Yeah, like I didn't like Julia since the beginning, so eventually she got more crazier with Frank. I guess Frank sort of like made her go insane, just not in a sense of her getting insane. It's just she's more insane of trying to do for her lover, because I guess she still liked Frank even though when he was dead.
Yeah. Well, it's like it kind of reminds me of like, when a guy is into some really freaky shit and the girl loves the guy for who he is and like starts to kind of form the same freaky sexual shit that the guy has just to please him, and then she gets like a taste for it,
Yeah.
Like I kind of like that. I mean, that's if you want to like dissect it deeply, like that's women doing what men want and pleasing to them, and then enjoying it as it's going. Because she almost gets like a sense of empowerment from like seducing these men to her house so that Frank can kill them.
It's sort of double standard. Like he's using her and she's using a man to get to Frank.
Well, and like, yeah. So like, yeah, Christy is definitely the one you care about, and I honestly feel really bad for Larry, her dad.
Yeah, I did too.
Because like there's something up with Julia, and like, Christy knows too, and like he's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, he was like the nice guy, the nice dad, and just died. I hate that.
I love like, doesn't like Frank like wear Larry's face for a little bit?
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal.
That was crazy. I forgot which victim it was, but it was where I think it was one or two victim where they takes him to the house, and then when they go to Frank's place, he starts taking everything off, and then she grabs a hammer and starts bashing him.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Crazy.
Like she definitely gets a bloodlust herself, and he's trying to escape the Cenobites because they want to take him back. They don't want him to just be free, and so what ends up actually happening is Christy ends up finding the box and opening it when she's in like a hospital kind of area. And I don't we can talk more about how she got there later, but so she opens the box and like the Cenobites, this is I think after she gets attacked by Frank and Julia, and the Cenobites come and find her, and they make a deal with her that if she can give them Frank, they won't take her back and torture her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she makes a deal with them. And then the one we were talking about with the split neck, like at the end, wants to take her anyway.
One of my favorite scenes from the film, aside from all the torture they did to Frank and Julia towards the film, it was where they go to when Chrissy goes to hell, and all of a sudden the spider mutant starts chasing her.
Yeah. So like the walls open up and like she's walking down there. I think her boyfriend's there too.
Did he open the box?
Maybe. I think this is before the Cenobites show up. And then there's that giant demon freak thing that like chases him down the hallway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really random ass moments in this film, like that one where they're just being chased by creatures, and like my favorite character in the film is the hobo guy.
Yo, the hobo guy. Grasshoppers.
Yeah, so she's like in a pet shop, and he's just like sitting there. I think she works in the pet shop, and he's just like
Keeps
eating something, and like she looks over at him, and he's like eating grasshoppers, and then he just like leaves, and it was really disturbing and unsettling, and I'm like, what the fuck is up with this guy?
It took her a while to say get out.
Yeah, she just kind of watching him. And then, like, at the end of the film, he turns into a giant dragon, takes the box, and flies away.
That was a crazy ending. You just turns to a dragon. First seeing it, I was like, whoa, okay.
I think this film really knows what it is. Like, that's one of the things I appreciate about it the most. Like, there's a lot of random-ass, just horrifying shit that just happens. Like, for no reason. There's a lot of just random-ass shit. And I like that. It was a big inspiration for Mindcrawler a little bit. I just wanted to like throw together some random ass horror movie.
I I believe like they did this like these things because I believe the director and production team said like we can, right?
And Clive Barker, he does a lot of like horror shit too. Like he did Nightbreed, and you know he wrote a lot of novels and shit. He's all about like taking the horror genre and like using like real themes with it. You know, like it's not just a bunch of random murders. Like there are random shit that happens, but there's still like a really base plot line, like the whole Frank and Julia story and the Christie trying to protect her dad and all of this. Like it's a lot better than your cliche shit. Like you can't say that Hellraiser is cliche in any way. I've never seen anything like it, and I don't think there will ever be anything like it.
So how many films? How many Hellraiser films are there?
I think there are 9.
9. God. Ooh.
And like the guy who plays Pinhead is like in every single one of them.
Money, I guess.
Yeah. Well, for some of them, it's like a quick job for him because he's barely even in 5, which Inferno is. It's awful.
How would you grade them from the ones you've seen?
I saw 1 through 4, and then I watched half of 5. So like I give like the first one like a B. The second one like a C plus. The third one I give an F. I hate that movie. The fourth one is in space.
Oh man.
Like half of it takes place in space, and the other half of it takes place during like I want to say like the French Revolution. I don't know. It's weird. It's like all about like this dude's bloodline, and it barely has anything to do with the Cenobites. Like it's more about like how the box was made. Pinhead's in it for a little bit. It's more about like this demon chick. It's kind of stupid.
Like I've noticed why there was a lot of horror film sequels where it takes place in space.
Yeah, I don't know why that's a thing because they're all terrible.
Like, because it's space or.
But like overall, the film is like a C. It's really funny too because in the third film, the director, Clive Barker only directed the first one, and that one's the best one. But like whoever directed the third one put his name under Alan Smithy.
Dude, like, I swear.
Oh, sorry, that was the fourth one.
Like the original director should do a reboot of Hellraiser, or even the way they did Mad Max.
Yeah.
Fury Road, just do that now, and then make them more modern, I guess. And I think with the money you could get, it could look beautiful.
It could be a really good film.
And with the cameras these days,
yeah.
Oh.
Like, number 4 was like a C, C minus. Like, there's some cool things I like about it, but it's also really dumb and boring. But like, it's shot really well, I guess. And then number 5 is just like the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, it's so bad. It's really funny because the director of Sinister is the guy who directed Hellraiser 5. And that was like his first feature film.
Oh, which is understandable, but it's not an excuse, like.
I forget which company had the rights to Hellraiser 5, but they just like dusted off an old script, like literally dusted off an old horror script that had nothing to do with Hellraiser, quickly changed some things to throw Pinhead in it, slapped Hellraiser 5 on it, and shipped it out. Like, it's about a detective dude who's like a crooked cop, like fucks prostitutes even though he's married, and like plants evidence on people, and like does all that sort of shit. And it's about like him finding the puzzle box and weird things happen to him. It's dumb. It's really dumb. It's like they tried really, really hard to create like this really shitty world, and it's dumb.
What's it called? So like I was just thinking for how they just copy and paste a script to Hellraiser 5. I forgot what movie. There was a movie that they just put the name on it, just for the hell of it. Let's see. And it was like a sequel. It wasn't like a sequel to a movie. It was just a sequel.
You're talking about Troll 2?
Yes. There you go. Troll 2. That's a good example. Troll 2. That's what it reminds me of.
Yep.
And then but overall, my experience with Hellraiser was really good. I liked it. I haven't yet seen the second one, but maybe we will.
Yeah, I like the second one because like you don't really know what hell looks like from the first one, and they go to hell, like they're just like traveling around hell, and all the main characters from the first one are in it, so it's just like takes place right after the first one, and it's kind of cool. Like a lot of horror movies do that. Let's see, Friday the 13th. The second one took place right after the first one. In Halloween, like, even though I think it was like 5 years went by before they made the next one, but it was like, it seemed like it was right after the first movie. The second one was really good for the Halloween movies. And then like even Nightmare on Elm Street, like I think the second Nightmare on Elm Street takes place right after the first one. Maybe not. The second Nightmare on Elm Street is really bad.
I haven't seen. I've only seen the original, but I haven't seen any sequels. So I didn't bother.
There's some of the sequels. I think Nightmare on Elm Street has a better track run than any of the other horror movies for sequels.
Except the reboot.
The reboot was really shitty.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that.
Michael Bay.
Oh.
Michael Bay is. I think he produced that film.
Yeah, anything with Michael Bay will just explosions, boobies.
Well, he's done a lot of producing like remakes of horror films.
Yeah.
The newer Texas Chainsaw Massacre films were produced by Michael Bay. Like he's tarnished many a good things because I really like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite classic horror movies.
So why did the original director of Hellraiser did they kick him out of the project or?
No, he is the executive producer on, I don't know if he's the producer of the second one, but I know he's at least an executive producer on like all of them. At least up to 5. I know that. I haven't seen past 5.
But he just stopped directing. Like why? Why was that?
Well, he's directed other things. I think he focuses more on novels. I don't really know too much about him, like per se. I know he's also done Nightbreed and a bunch of other films, but they're more like obscure horror films. I really like Nightbreed. I think Nightbreed's a really good movie.
Yeah, like, this should have won, like, it should at least be nominated for Best Practical Effect or something. This film is at least nominated, you know, for its time.
The thing is, in like the 80s, a lot of horror movies were coming out. And I think Hellraiser did get quite a bit of memorability because they kept making them. But, like, there were a lot of better horror movies out, you know. Like, I showed you the clip from Videodrome.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. And a lot of them are just, like, forgotten, you know. There are a lot of good 80s horror films that I would like to see more films kind of like that. Kind of like Hellraiser and kind of like Videodrome, where it's, you know, there's like random horror shit in it, but it's usually making a statement about something.
Yeah, like I remember watching, like nowadays we just see like supernatural. Right now is the supernatural era.
Yeah. We're definitely in a time where it's all about ghosts and demons, which I don't find ghosts or demons scary. I didn't even like the original. I don't really like the original The Exorcist, and I don't really like Amityville Horror. There's just that shit doesn't scare me.
I'll tell you this: I really enjoyed the Conjuring.
The Conjuring is really good. It's full of cliches. It's like Cliche the movie.
Yeah.
We did my dad and I did a count of how many horror cliches are in there, and I believe it was 32.
32.
Throughout the whole movie, like just 32 consecutive horror cliches in one movie, and it's ridiculous. But the movie itself is really fun. It's a fun movie. It's a good take on the Amityville Horror type thing.
I'm not sure, but was there like a few cliches in Hellraiser?
Maybe the girl tripping.
Yeah, that's the holy grail about horror, is just the girl tripping.
Well, you have a pretty female protagonist who trips, but you know what? Like, she's a lot stronger of a protagonist than in like many other movies.
Yeah.
Like she's actually a pretty strong female character, which is something, especially in the 80s, you didn't see.
They're usually bait.
Yeah, and she wasn't. She was definitely the protagonist, and she overcame the enemies. The love interest wasn't really like a sexual, over-the-top love interest. It was just like we could possibly become an item, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I just met you, now we're going to be inseparable for the next couple films.
And it was creepy too how Frank tried to get at Christy, his own niece.
Yeah, I like how like overly sexual Frank is just like he wants to fuck everything.
Yeah, he sort of looked like a young Bruce Campbell. Times
a little bit.
Yeah, like he had the chin, maybe the cheeks, and
I just like how most of the movie he's walking around as like a meat puppet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man, it was great just watching it. I like the supernatural part of it. I like the gory part of it. I like the story was great. I wasn't confused at all.
I enjoyed the story.
Yeah, the story was spot on. Yeah, they should reboot this film.
I would love to. I would love to see that. If done correctly.
Yeah, done correctly. And
well, my biggest problem with the movie is the fact that like all the blood is pink, and I know that was a thing in the 80s for some reason. Maybe it's the way films got digitally transferred over, but like I don't know if you noticed, but like all the blood is like super pink.
I think I don't know if Silent Night. I think it had pink too.
Yeah, well, so did like Dawn of the Dead and like a lot of other 80s horror films. Dawn of the Dead, like I could do a whole like lecture on how much I love George A. Romero's zombie trilogy. Yeah, he did Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead. He produced Return of the Living Dead. Like he's the reason zombies are the way they are today. And his films weren't just about a bunch of good old boys shooting up the zombies. Mm-hmm. No, they were a lot more like the zombies were a metaphor for things. And there was a lot of cultural things that he talked about. And Day of the Dead is like talks about like the military and things like that. It's much more than just zombie films. Zombies are just kind of there.
Did your parents ever see it after all? Like
Hellraiser? I don't think so.
No,
I'm pretty sure like they did, because I know my mom, like I said, she said something about it to me when I was a kid and kind of told me the basic plot. So I know she remembers it. But I remember asking my dad about it. Like, have you seen Hellraiser? And he's like, nah, I think I skipped that one, because he's like a real big horror movie buff. And he's like, yeah, well, in the 80s, there was so much of the same thing just being rehashed over and over again. I kind of stopped watching some horror movies just because it looked the same. And I think Hellraiser was one I missed. I'm pretty sure he's seen it. He just probably doesn't think it was memorable.
I need to show it to my parents because my mom's a huge horror buff. I don't know about my dad. He likes realistic films. So I think he'll just stick to westerns, but once in a while we have to convince him to watch it. But my mom loves horror, so
does she?
Yeah, she loves horror. It doesn't matter what kind of horror it is. Like my brother usually shows her Japanese videos, the Japanese movies, horror films like Ju-On and
those are the best.
Other films. But I remember she even likes the American version of The Grudge. She loves that. I think we're slowly showing her the old classic ones, and I think I showed her a little bit of the Chainsaw Massacre, but she got tired. Like, she was already tired by the time, so I had to stop it. I want to show her this, though.
Yeah.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily a guilty pleasure of mine, because it's really not a phenomenal movie, but I really enjoy it for what it is. Like, it's a good time.
Yeah, I recommend anybody who's listening to this, watch Hellraiser. If you've never seen it, just watch it by yourself or even watch it with a friend. It's like, you could really have a conversation of what you've seen. Like, me and Shay had conversation of what was going on in the scene. I like it. For example, the spider scene, I kept saying, like, what just happened? Like, this guy was just chasing the main girl, and I was like, okay, It got me a little excited watching more and more and more as weird stuff started happening in the film.
Yeah, you definitely have to it's definitely dated, so you'll have to keep that in mind. It's definitely a film made in the 80s. Like, it's definitely a film made in the 80s.
Yeah.
But once you can put that aside, which hopefully you can, then it's great.
Yeah, totally. I think that's it for today for Hellraiser.
Yeah. There's not much more to say about it. What would you give it overall?
I will give the film a solid close to a B plus. So it's like from a B to B plus.
I have to agree. I think it's a B.
Yeah.
B film for sure.
Yeah, good film. All right, Shay, it was good talking to you, talking about this film. That's it for Movie Mondays, and we'll talk to you guys soon, probably next week.